Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer-Amosi-Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS! This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised. Hi, and welcome to a special episode of Von MOTS, which is special because we're doing the NJ Film Festival, which Steve-O and I just returned from. What, a 5-night event or so?
I think so, yeah.
I'm Jonathan Menzer, here with Stephen Ormosi.
Hello?
So we saw 4 short films. So I will give a short description of the 4 movies we saw. And I apologize in advance for butchering any names as they come along. So the first movie was entitled Flesh by Kather Sei, who is from South River, New Jersey, which is right around the block from us.
Mm-hmm.
It is described as an existential film about a battered woman turned sociopath. Belle becomes a wicked puppet master who pulls the strings of everyone around her, manipulating them into executing a twisted and vengeful plot of deception. Created in 2016, it is 15 minutes long. And there's actually a Q&A discussion with the director.
Yes, which was very good, actually.
Hopefully we'll have him on the horn eventually.
Yeah, all right. I'm actually going to try and get him speak with us if we can. So we'll see how that goes.
The second movie was, spoiler alert, They Will All Die in Space by Javier Chillon, who is from Madrid, Spain.
This wins the award for the best movie title of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. A beautifully shot and suspenseful futuristic tale. When a young astronaut wakes up from a cryogenic sleep in a virtually abandoned spaceship, he grows suspicious about the intentions of the 2 remaining fellow astronauts. With a pulsating score keeping the film's tension high, They Will All Die in Space will suck you in and hold on to you until the end. Came out in 2015 and 14 minutes long.
I have a quick question about this. Who do you think wrote the summary? Because the first sentence... What's the first sentence again?
A beautifully shot and suspenseful futuristic tale.
Right.
Period.
So do you think that the director wrote this summary for this and was like, "Oh, this is beautifully shot. I'm gonna put that in there."
No, I imagine it's the Bob Ross guy who ran the NJ Film Festival.
Fair enough.
The third film was Chrysalis by Keaton McGruder from Los Angeles, California, which was we'll get to that. The year is 2144, which I actually think is a mistake because I think it was 2184 when the film came
I believe it said that in the film, yeah.
Instead of growing older, every person is going through a process of genetic transformation known as Chrysalis. 1 million genes, 1 million possibilities. But for Tristan Winters, a spy in the Imaginate Division of Global Security, I'm
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Each new genetic cycle is a chance to develop a mutation of monoamine oxidase, or ... the psychopath gene. Dun, dun, dun. 2015, 19 minutes long. And by our laughter, you can imagine how well we're going to rate this. And the final film, which is less a film and more of an acid trip, was Post-Panoptic Gazing by M. Woods from Los Angeles, California. All it is M. Woods. I don't know the first name. I imagine somehow related to James Woods.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, that's a fact.
It is now.
You will dance unlike you have ever danced before. Yes. With threads of everything you know repackaged in metastatic digital packets of data rapidly going nowhere, blinking quickly into things outside the periphery of consciousness and knowledge, towards digital sickness that thirsts for absolution. Ignore the rabid gnashing of your teeth. Better to grin and bear it and accept the perpetual post-panoptic suspension, created via hand-processed Super 8, 16mm, 35mm, and digital manipulation. 2016, and that was 12 minutes long.
That was actually a really cool experiment.
That was a really cool attempt to give me a seizure.
That as well. There was a lot of seizure-inducing, or possibly seizure-inducing things in there.
So let's return to the beginning and discuss Flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is hands down the best film of the evening.
I thought that this and the second one, They Will All Die in Space, for very, very different reasons, were up there in terms of the best one of the night.
For a better understanding, actually, it was very interesting to hear the director talk about this film, because there were several characters, 4 characters for the film, but each of the characters played multiple roles.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the female lead play 2 different characters, and the male lead play 2 different characters, and it was about a woman who was in a bad relationship, a very abusive relationship at that.
Right.
The guy was very controlling, basically raped her for. Yeah, I don't think there's an argument for that.
No,
and
definitely.
She also has a lover who is a very
not a lover.
A
Patsy, I think, really is a
would-be Romeo,
right.
Who's a kind of milquetoast type of character who's very intellectual and really wants to pursue a relationship. She says, "Well, if you want me, you have to take me away from the my abusive boyfriend."
Mm.
But all the while, she has a third relationship with a lesbian relationship with this other woman. So basically, they set up the
also played by herself, which is the interesting part of this.
So they have the abusive boyfriend killed by the would-be Romeo, only to have him killed by the lesbian lover, and they run off together and to the sunset and whatnot.
Right.
So it was a interesting. I don't know if it's first attempt as a director, but it was very well shot. The writing was decent, and I think better than the other 3 options here. I think it was a fair attempt for a new director.
Yeah, I thought that Kather who spoke did a very good job, and he actually said something in his Q&A that I thought was really interesting, where he said he was going for a feeling of a unity consciousness, is the way that he described it. And that said, like, there's a definite theme in this movie about all of us, like every person being kind of the same.
Yes.
And that's why the characters played more than one role. And in fact, there was this part in the film where the character is looking out at the street, and like everybody going down the street is, either him or the woman that he's with in the end. And it's kind of an interesting take on like what makes us different, what makes us the same, and like especially in love, like is one person, because they act differently, really any different than another, that type of thing.
And would I believe the abusive boyfriend was like Jack, and the other would-be boyfriend was Tim.
Yeah.
Would Tim have turned into Jack eventually, in that kind of sense? So it asks a lot of questions. It doesn't provide many answers.
Right.
And again, it's 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a very well done attempt. I like to see what else this guy. I think he has a bright future. He actually he's a writer, director, and lead actor in this work.
Yep.
He did a fine job at all of them. Whoever was the actress, I unfortunately don't have her name. I don't think there's any way to get the name.
Yeah, I mean, we may be able to, somehow look it up online, but yeah, you're right. These are very, very, very indie movies, so like it's gonna be hard to find information.
The lead actress, if you are looking for a great actress, she did a phenomenal job.
She was very good,
and that's all I have to really say. It was clever. It was a B effort all around. I'm going to give it off of a thing. It's not. I wasn't floored.
Not meaning it's a B movie,
yeah,
but meaning that it was like it was close to where he's got to be like a very good director, and like it seems like he's getting there, or possibly will get there in the future. Hopefully, he keeps getting the money that he needs to make stuff, because he did a very good job. The cinematography was really good. So this was the only Q&A that we stuck around for. I actually asked a question because at the end, the female main character is her own lover, in a sense. I mean, they're named 2 different names, and I guess they're supposed to be 2 different characters.
Charlie and Belle, if memory is serving me correctly.
Right. And I thought it was interesting that she ended up with herself after being through this abusive relationship and like dealing with these 2 very different, these 2 very clashing personalities, that she kind of just chose herself, even though it was certainly a different aspect of her personality that was. But I thought it was kind of an interesting way to say that we all kind of just love ourselves most in the end. When I asked Kather that question, he kind of said that wasn't really my intention, but it's a good like way to look at it. So I don't know, maybe I thought that was one of the most obvious things that jumped out at me was like, well, she's with herself at the end, which is definitely some other kind of thing that this could be saying.
It seems complex, I think, the way we're describing it.
Right.
And in a way, it's almost Lynchian in the idea of identity. However, it possessed a level of clarity, especially for such a short film.
Right.
Again, I said it asked a lot of questions, it didn't answer much, but I wasn't left with the feeling of it being unanswered. I got everything I feel that I could have gotten out of it. And again, I'm going to give it, I think it was the best film of the night. So, you have any other final thoughts?
No, I think that it probably was the best film of the night. Although I will make my case, perhaps, for They Will All Die in Space as well, because I just enjoyed a lot of things that happened in that movie.
Well, speaking of which, They Will All Die in Space is the best title of the night.
Oh, for sure.
They will all die in space, and they will be delicious. It should be also the subtitle of that.
Or the other tagline could be, The Meatloaf is People?
Yes. So, Steve, would you actually like to give the synopsis for this?
Sure. It starts off, I want to describe the first scene because it's impactful at the end. So, it starts off with these two... Oh, actually, it starts off on a very long shot of a spacecraft going through, or of a spaceship going through space. Very reminiscent of mostly Spaceballs, but you know that Star Wars scene where
think of the first test run of Star Wars when they're trying to show what they want to do.
Yeah, like they're saying like this, but not this, but like this.
Let's actually put money into this. There you go.
Well, we have more money, we can do this better.
Yeah.
But it's that shot of like the spaceship coming into the shot and like going along the entire length of it and whatever, and then they go into the ship. There's two guys eating, and they have what looks like meatloaf, and they're just eating it and like looking at each other, not speaking much, and then they get a PA announcement basically saying that pod whatever is open, and they meet this guy who comes out of the pod. And they start talking to him, and basically he says, you know, hey, what's going on? Like, we should wake my wife up because she could help with they're having problems with the ship. Like, basically they're having problems with the ship. The ship is like, they say it's been drifting for 6 months, and they need his help to fix it. And he says, hey, we should wake my wife up. She's much better at this stuff. And they're like, well, she may not survive if we wake her up or something like that. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't do that. They go through, I don't know, 10 more minutes of this guy, like, trying to fix the ship, going outside, and, like, the entire time he's, like, getting a little bit suspicious of what's going on. He actually takes a tape recording of, like, their conversation, and it's them talking about things that seem kind of innocuous, but are a little bit suspicious. Eventually, basically knocks the guy out, knocks one of the guys out, steals the gun that he had.
He overhears them threatening him with saying that they're going to take him out. So he then... Right.
That's a little bit later, yeah. So the guy goes to basically take him out. He's got a shotgun. I wish I knew the names of these characters.
They were all very bland.
Yeah, it was like Dave and John and, you know, John and Ray or something like that. But he gets the guy that they've woken up, gets the drop on the guy that's about to kill him, knocks him out, brings him back, and attempts to get answers, which he does eventually by threatening the other guy's life. And the answers are basically that they've been drifting for a lot longer than 6 months, and they've woken up pretty much the entire ship already trying to get it fixed, and no one has been able to fix it. And what they've been doing to survive is killing people and eating them, and I guess just keeping the oxygen use low by whatever. They've been killing people and eating them.
That's the important part. That's the big twist of this.
So that's
the science isn't all that important in this space episode of Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's pretty much a space episode of Twilight Zone. The big knife in the gut at the end is that he ends up killing both these guys, and you see him eating the meatloaf at the end, and like another person is like, you hear the PA again, and another person's being woken up. I had a lot of fun watching it. I thought it was a really fun little like short film.
So this kind of rickrolled me in a way. The two, Guy 1 and Guy 2, well, I'm going to call those two guys who were awake.
Right.
They didn't seem to be very good actors because I was going in this with very low expectations. So they seemed very like, oh, yeah, like delivering their lines with a casualness. Meanwhile, the reawoken guy is very upbeat and like, yeah, we'll survive. And he seemed to be chewing scenery while the other guys weren't doing anything. But then it turned out that was all part of the plan all along. So shame on me for assuming that a indie film would be terrible.
There you go.
So overall, it felt very much like a fun episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What your commentary on the acting makes it feel even more like a Twilight Zone episode in the end.
Like these, I believe, are Spanish actors. This is made in Madrid. Although I'm quite certain that the main actor was cryogenically frozen at one point in the 50s and reawoke to star in this because he absolutely feels
He's Captain America.
Yeah. It feels like, I don't know, Charlton Heston or Leslie Nielsen back in the day in Lost Planet, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it felt very retro, and it was low budget, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I can't say it was a good movie, but it was a fun movie. I would love to see like Riff Tracks or Mystery Science Theater 3000 have a field day with this.
Yeah.
Because it feels very 50s B science film.
I don't know. I like it. Like maybe I don't want to say it was as good as a Twilight Zone episode, but it felt very reminiscent of a Twilight Zone episode. And like the fact it was black and white. We didn't mention that yet, but like it was all black and white, so like it had that feel, like that kind of filter already, and it just had the same kind of morality that Twilight Zone has, and like the same kind of twist at the end that Twilight Zone has. That like perhaps you've seen it before, but it's a little bit of a different twist on it.
If you get a chance, I don't know if it's on YouTube or anything, but if you get a chance to see, I will recommend this one the most of all the ones we saw. Although I think Flesh was a better film.
Flesh is a little hard to watch, especially in the beginning, though.
Yeah. I think that this is, for people who are listening to a podcast on YouTube about movies, this is a fun film. It's, 14 minutes long?
Yeah.
It's like watching half an episode of Twilight Zone.
I highly suggest if you can find it.
You'll love this movie. Anything else to say about it?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Oh man, here we go.
All right. I have to give the synopsis to this one. Chrysalis. So imagine a young adult movie. Imagine Divergent or The Hunger Games or whatever have you.
Whatever that kind of stupid new Chloe Moretz movie is. Is that her name? Chloe Moretz? I don't know. Whatever. The chick from Kick-Ass.
So imagine yourself in a world where those movies exist. And all of a sudden, you get pitched a film for a new young adult series where at the age of 28, you miraculously transform into a slightly different version of yourself. Although, supposedly you can change, you lose all your memories. I don't know. The film wasn't really clear.
No. You keep all your memories. Quote unquote, everything else changes. However,
we'll get to that point.
All right. Sorry.
So this is like watching the pilot episode of a young adult like TV show.
Yeah. Yes.
Except
very much
this isn't the pilot that they decided to run with. This is the pilot they watched and said, "Oh yeah, I like the ideas. Reshoot it with a different cast." I don't mean to be harsh on this.
You know what? The acting wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, by any means, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, I have to say that. But everything else about this film was...
The dialogue was maybe the worst thing that I've ever... No, that's not true. I've heard very bad dialogue.
But this was up there. This was Twilight bad.
It just didn't make any sense. That was the problem.
Or it would be people delivering lines of exposition.
Yeah.
So at times...
The narration was so over the top. Like
this is a full concept that they have for an entire movie, perhaps multiple movies, that they narrowed down...
Boiled down.
To 19 minutes. So at times this feels very rushed. There's no time for character development, although they introduce a lot of characters. There's kung fu battles.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call it kung fu. I would hold way back on calling it kung fu.
Martial arts is an insult, so martial activities.
Yeah. Martial activities is perfect. There are martial activities in this.
And, all right, so basically, to actually give you a synopsis, the main male character is about to do his transformation.
What's his name? Tristan?
Yeah, Tristan.
The most young adult name I've ever heard in my life.
Yes. Tristan Martell.
He's like every young adult I've ever met is named Tristan, I think.
Anyway, he's about to change into something, and he's fearful of these changes that are going on to his body.
Oh my god.
And he's with his girlfriend, live-in girlfriend, I think.
Seemingly. But when they change, they're not going to be like together anymore, even though they have all their memories.
Yeah, so they're like, we'll be together even while we're both going through all these complex changes in ourselves. And his father, he's also becoming an agent in this, like, police force or spy or something like that. And his father is a spy already who is like very distant from him. I don't know. But nonetheless, everything's okay at the end. Like, oh yeah.
We've skipped over a lot of things here. So like, his father has covered up his mother's murder, or like disappearance, or whatever. Is it ever made clear if she was killed?
I think the mother appeared at the end scene with it going to be...
What? No. I think his mother was killed because she had the psychopath gene.
Yes.
She didn't have the psychopath gene, but then she had her genes mutated to have the psychopath gene when she became a chrysalis.
No, they were recessive and they became dominant or whatever. And not the psychopath gene, it's monoamine oxidase, which sounds scientific. ...
or the psychopath gene, I believe is the next part of that.
Yes, that is exactly the part. No, it's actually or ... the psychopath gene.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Get your facts straight, man.
This movie, here's what I'm going to say. This movie had some decent shots. It would, like, I feel like this director would be a good action movie director, except for the fact that who is it? Keaton McGruder?
Which I'm pretty sure is a fake name.
Yeah, that sounds fake. Could not do a fight scene. Like, that was, like, everything else was good about this.
Explain my favorite part of this film. All right, by the way, so 19 minutes. We're in a theater not filled with people, but there's enough people that we don't want to laugh out loud at this ridiculousness that's happening here. Whether it's the dialogue,
which I did, and I felt bad.
Whether it's the insane plot twists, or this battle that rages out between the
battle. I wouldn't call it a battle.
Right,
I would call it like a unintentionally slow motion anger scene.
So no, the father the father's going to help his son escape because if he has the psychopath gene, they're going to get rid of him. So he's saying, "No, I'm going to go do the right thing and get tested."
Right? Yeah. No. Hold on. Is this an STD thing? Is this like a...
I have no idea. I have no idea what any of the themes are here. So you have the captain of this spy agency or whatever,
right,
with her thugs, versus the father, Tristan, and I guess his girlfriend.
There's the showdown because the kid says that he doesn't want to run away. He wants to go through with whatever the hell.
So there's this... the father is actually kind of a decent at fake martial arts, kind of.
Except for the last part when he did the last.
So the leader has everyone else is defeated. The leader has Tristan in a chokehold, and the father goes up right behind her and chokeholds her at the same time.
By the way, so slowly runs up to her and slowly puts the chokehold on. It was like there was no sense of I need to do this quickly. It was just he kind of
it was the funniest
thing. He kind of
thing
jogs up to her and seemingly not wanting to hurt her, puts his arm around her neck.
And she drops Tristan immediately and dies or something.
So they kill the leader.
I don't know. I was trying my best not to laugh.
I was too, but I'm pretty sure they kill her. So they kill the leader of this fucking spy agency, and then nothing happens. Like whatever. That's cool, I guess. Yeah. He goes on and like changes, and then he doesn't have the psychopath gene or whatever.
Yeah, this time.
Yeah. Until next time, which is 28 years later. By the way, the movie's called Chrysalis. It's about changing into another person, I guess, or like changing things about you.
A good metaphor for teenage
your
years
body is changing. Your body changes into another person when every 28 years. Yes, for a teenager, except for when you're 28 years old. Secondly, Chrysalis is like butterflies. They go from caterpillar to butterfly one time. It's not like every so many years,
are immortal.
Every so many years,
that's why I learned
they just change again. But it's not like you just change one time and then you're immortal. It's like you change every 28 years. Yeah. So Chrysalis, I don't know if that was the right term for this.
Well, the writer did not have the writing gene. So.
Yeah, I want to see somebody who is good at writing write this guy a script that has nothing to do with fighting, and I think he'll be all right.
Yeah. So this was the funniest film we saw, or short film we saw.
It's also the one I felt the worst about because I was laughing out loud in the theater and no one else was.
No, the three of us were.
Right. Well, you guys were, yeah.
And I couldn't believe that. I literally almost had a fit of the giggles. I would have had to left the theater so I didn't ruin the experience for other people because I just wanted I kept thinking I was hoping when he goes into his crystal state, just awakes as an old man, or
that'd be amazing.
Or like Steve Buscemi.
That's what you're saying, he's just Morgan Freeman when he wakes up.
I just kept. But here's the thing: is also I just want to mention one of the problem with this, and I think this is more of the fact that this is a low budget thing. But for a movie about genetic tampering and about changing to be kind of the perfect individuals and wanting the perfect genes, there's only white people in this world.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a low budget thing as far as I feel like
racism.
I feel like if this director had more friends who weren't white, he would have gotten his friends who weren't white to act in it. But I feel like he only has friends who are white because only his friends would act in this movie with this script. Maybe not just his friends, but you're right. I feel like there was, for a society that was we figured out all the genes, it has to say something about at least maybe not your subconscious, but the fact that you don't even think about the fact that this should be a very diverse society, in the fact that there's only white people in this movie, which is an interesting little side note. Whatever. I'm sure the director,
far from the greatest flaw of this.
I'm sure the director did not have this in mind at all when it happened, but it was just something that was easy to notice. I'll say.
I'm going to give this one. I know I didn't rate the other one, but I'm going to give this one a D-, because it's not an F. Because there was effort that went into this.
There was effort. There were attempts at interesting cinematography. I'll say that, and there were a couple of moments of interesting cinematography. I'll say that too. And
they did have a budget of some sort because there's some interesting sci-fi aspects
well,
they had there.
You know what? I don't know if this was one of the parts that you were laughing at, but I thought that there's a spiral staircase that is just in dream sequences that looks just like a strand of DNA, which I thought was kind of a cool visual touch.
No, that was a neat one, except for the fact that they kept bringing it up with him battling with his inner psychopath.
Yeah, that was dumb. But the actual visual of the staircase was cool. By the way, before we go on, what do you rate They Will All Die in Space? Because you gave Flesh a B+.
I gave Flesh a B.
Or a B?
I'll give They Will Die in Space a C+.
All right, let me rate these because I haven't given grades yet. So I'll give Flesh. I'll stick with you on a B for Flesh. I'll give They Will All Die in Space. I'll give it a B-.
Okay.
And Chrysalis, yes, I'll give it a D for its couple moments of interesting cinematography. Yeah, it's not an F.
It wasn't. Here's the thing: is Chrysalis was not an attempt to cash in on something, or it might have been on the young adult movement.
No, yeah, exactly. It felt very much like
it wasn't a cynical attempt to do that, nor was it a people tried here, people cared here.
Yeah.
So it didn't. You can't give it an F because there was at least an effort in there, but it was misfired for me on almost all cylinders.
Right. It's not it's not the type of movie that I would like. I think that this might be interesting for teenagers or something. Like, it felt very much like a young adult, like an early attempt at a young adult film, or like getting into that type of filmmaking, which I am not interested in. So, like, for me, it's probably lower grade than it would be for people that are, into that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I would actually, there's enough clever ideas in there that I hope that whoever it was who's the forerunner of this, whether it was a writer, whether it was Keaton, McGruder, whoever it was,
I'm guessing that most of these, well, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that the directors of these wrote them as well.
But there's enough clever ideas there that it was you can build something off of that. And
there's clearly attention paid in this to like polished filmmaking. Mm-hmm. Like it felt polished. It felt polished. It felt like a film that if the director had a script a script for him already, that he could have done a good job of making it work, especially with like a bigger budget. Like he did. I don't know what the budget on this was. I assume it wasn't that big, but it looked like at a lot of times it looked like a high budget film.
No, he definitely has a eye for the fantastical world,
right? For
building a world that felt like, yeah, there's issues with certain budgetary things. Like the opening shot is the skyline of L.A., mm-hmm. which certainly will not look that way in 100 years from now, 150 years from now. So, yeah, those kind of differences. But when he dealt with like the places that he visited in that mm-hmm. world, it felt that there was realistic kind of science fiction that went into it.
Yeah.
So whoever was the visual mind behind it had a good touch for that. So, mm-hmm. yeah, we laughed. But at the end of the day, I hope to see work from this guy in the future.
Yeah, I think it was a good cinematography, good direction with a bad script.
Okay, we're on to our final film, or if you want to call it that.
I do.
Post-Panoptic gazing. So, would you like to give the synopsis of this?
Yep, it's crazy shit.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Don Hertzfeldt, and he did a film called Everything Will Be Okay, which involved a person going through I believe it's an unspoken kind of medical issue, which is causing him to be divorced from reality. Mm-hmm. So you see the world starting to break down around him. And this was those scenes of the world disintegrating as someone's going mad. Done for 12 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting film. It was just a lot of camera play. What were 3 or 4 different types of cameras that he used, or she? I don't know who M. Woods is.
James Woods' alter ego.
Right.
Super 8, 16mm, 35mm, and digital manipulation.
And I think it was just like having a lot of fun, like messing around with the themes of like. It seemed like the themes were basically sex and violence, right?
Except that the sexuality in this was often made to look unpleasant mm-hmm. and uncomfortable, and they would take, in a sense, like, it's hard to explain without giving you a visual impression of what it's
right.
like.
You really need to see this one.
They would have overlays of different scenes, so like one image would but everything was distorted and blurred. They'd have images of like George W. Bush, and then like over his face or behind him would be walking like military thing, but that's not what this was about. It's not particularly political, right. Although it has political moments. It's very weird. It's very hard to describe.
It's just a very visual, very avant-garde type of film. Like, it's just kind of playing with the medium. It's not really telling a story per se. Although I think at one point, so they flashed this these words on the screen a couple times, and I couldn't exactly. It was too fast to exactly read it, but I think it might have said "narrative is terrorism." is what I thought it said.
I read the narrative. I couldn't read the rest of it.
I think it said narrative is terrorism, but I could be wrong. But like, I think I like when I saw that, and when my brain interpreted it as that, I was it kind of made it obvious what, like, looking at it through that lens, it kind of made it obvious that this person, M. Woods, the director, was just trying to kind of go past narrative, in that sense, like kind of trying to get beyond the narrative and like just get into the visuals and like get into the art of the thing, and not necessarily be tied to narrative, which isn't really my thing usually. Yeah. But I can appreciate a good, an interesting visual, like, deep dive into something like that.
To me, this is a work that doesn't exist outside of a film festival.
Yeah, of course. Like, who's going to go see this? Like, nobody's going to... That's the thing. Nobody would go to a movie theater to see this, especially since it's, like, 12 minutes long, and there's no narrative to speak of in it. It's something that, somebody who is very interested in the visualization of filmmaking and the cinematography of filmmaking can just go and play with a bunch of cameras and like splice something together, and like you watch it, and it takes a lot of, not only it takes a lot of artistry, but it takes a lot of just time and editing and that type of stuff to make something like this work and like look good. But it doesn't have much more than that to it. I'm sure there was a statement that the director wanted to make, but it's not an obvious statement. It's not something that's like supposed to hit you in the face. I think it's more about like, here are a bunch of images that I find interesting and thought-provoking, and you look at them and see what you think about them.
Oh, I absolutely agree. This is really buffeting the line between pure art, or I would say that if you want to compare this to art, this is that idea of modern art, of the red splashes on a white canvas without having any necessarily specific narrative that it's intending. And again, we focus heavily on narrative here. I certainly do in my studies. I have nothing much to say about this. If you're at a film festival and you see this in the line of films to be seen, or if I went to another one and saw this, I would be like, oh, I have to see this again. But it doesn't really apply to, in a sense, discussion.
Right.
It's interesting. If you are, my word of warning is, if you are prone to seizures,
don't
stay away from this.
Do not see it.
If you are, and if you're, the only time I could ever recommend this is if you're actually in a situation where you're seeing art, or I could see this in like in a museum, being run on the film. Although there were, I think, necessary audio pieces to this. Although I assume I don't know. This is not my forte. I am not quite about like just the pure expression of art.
Right.
So I'm going to give this an NA. Because this is outside the realm of my sensibilities and my ability to effectively critique. But I appreciate it for what it attempted to do. I've seen other things like this. I thought it was similar, but this is the newest in my memory, so that's like distorted for that. So I have really no effective criticism to give this.
Yeah, I mean, it's us as reviewers, we, especially, us specifically as reviewers, I mean, we focus on narrative, and this doesn't have much to be spoken for. It's got the idea of a visual narrative, embedded in it somewhere, but if you watch it, I mean, who knows? Perhaps you can find a narrative string to pull, but like there wasn't really much there for me. It's just a lot of interesting visuals, and I'm okay with that for 12 minutes or however long it was. Like it was cool to watch. It was it didn't. I wasn't like bored by it or anything. In fact, I don't think you can be bored by this movie. Yeah. But it's not like I wouldn't go out of my way to see it, but I wouldn't cringe. I wouldn't cringe away from watching it again either. Mm.
So that's, I think, the best we're going to give for this, because it is not what we do.
Right.
So overall, I enjoyed going to film festivals. I wish I could have gone to more of these. Unfortunately, busy life.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't know. I had a good time. I thought it was fun. It's always interesting to go out and see what's on the vanguard, what's on the, what people that are just getting into something are looking at and think is interesting and what they want to do with this medium that's been, around for a long time now. I love the fact that there are still people that go back and reference They Will Die in Space is like this reference to like old sci-fi movies, and the fact that there are new things coming out, like Flesh was this really hardcore, like very interesting look at the intimacies of love and us as people, like how we view other people, whether or not we're all the same or what makes us different, that type of thing. Or even just going and watching something for 10 minutes that's just visually interesting.
So there was a fifth film. It was a documentary on psychedelics, which we decided to skip over so that we could actually go and review. Again, I am interested in documentaries. It's just that this didn't particularly have any interest for me.
Right.
So we both decided to skip over this. We will link whatever videos we can find, if any of these are up on YouTube, to the episode. And hopefully we're going to attempt to get Kather Sei, who's from around the corner here, on the horn. Yeah,
we'll see if we can get in touch with him, and if we can talk to him, that'd be great. I would love to talk to him more in depth, because he actually, when he did the short Q&A after his film, it was interesting. I think that it would be interesting to talk to him further about this stuff.
And I also think that's what's something important we can do as critics, is to highlight the up-and-coming directors and writers and actors in the world. And I think film festivals give us an opportunity to interact with people who, like, again, just like Kather Sei, or if any of the other directors are happening to be listening to this, feel free to get in contact with us. Or if any of the actors or actresses, anyone who involved, get in contact with what's the Lost Signals and the LostSignals.com.
The Lost Signals at LostSignals.com. Yeah. Get me on the horn.
Yeah, get him on the horn, and we'll put you on the radio. Nonetheless, I think that's it for now. I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, and here with Stephen Ormosi.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manser.
This has been a Lost Signals production. All rights reserved.